A double doink saves the Vikings in London. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings postcast. Luke Braun is in London, battling the London traffic. Sam Ekstrom in for Luke, joined by Luke Inman of Locked On Sports Minnesota to react to a bonkers, at times sloppy, crazy early Sunday morning London game. Vikings win 28-25. We've got hapless offensive play, crazy special team stuff going on, big Justin Jefferson performance, injuries played a role. The Saints were banged up. I don't know where to start, Luke, but let's start painting with a broad brush. Take out the nuance of it. The Vikings are 3-1. Doesn't matter how they got there. If I told you 3-1 entering the season, you're taking that 10 out of 10, are you not?
Oh my gosh, 3 wins, ugly or otherwise, they still count the same. When we were heading into this season, I looked at these first 4 games, and again, now they're sitting at obviously 3-1, but if this team wanted to be taken seriously, they needed to win games like this, right? They got to be able to win away from home against a backup quarterback in Andy Dalton. You knew they'd make it dramatic. Vikings just play a normal game? Impossible. But in the end, though, they finish on the right side of this one, turn to 3-1. And again, these first 4 games, though, is what I had circled at the beginning of the year. Tough test out the gate. Green Bay at home, Philly, Detroit, and the Saints. I think realistically, Sam, a lot of people thinking 2-2 might be best case scenario, 1-3 maybe on the table. Now you survive through some of those really tough litmus tests as you sit at 3-1, and now what feels like a softer schedule coming up here. Chicago, Miami, possibly without Tua, maybe a Teddy Bridgewater revenge game on the table. Cardinals and Commanders, your next 4 games. You feel a lot easier about this one. Time to take a deep breath, a collective sigh of relief here and digest this game here first.
Yeah, 28-24 last week, 28-25 this week. Almost the exact same score, and I think almost the exact same mentality leaving the game. If the Vikings lose this game today, and the same for last week, we would be so critical because so much went wrong. Coaching, offense, red zone, turnovers in this game. Kirk Cousins with a really bad interception, penalties at bad times. But the Vikings somehow find a way. And I don't know if winning this way is sustainable or not. But one thing they did improve, Luke Inman, Justin Jefferson got the ball today. And I know he made a couple of drops at inopportune times, but you can't nitpick too much when you have 10 catches, 147 yards, including basically the game-sealing catch on the bomb late in the fourth quarter. Jefferson had his way with the Saints today. That's really encouraging to see.
Yeah, so many times games in the NFL, Sam, come down to your playmakers, your X factors. These games come down to, you can sit back and watch a replay, say they come down to 2 or 3 plays that differentiates a win versus a loss. All week, you and I talked about how worried we were that Marshawn Lattimore was going to be matching up one-on-one with Justin Jefferson, because up until this point, we knew, all right, if defenses want to contain or slow down or shut down JJ, they're going to have to put 2, maybe even sometimes 3 guys. That's going to open up everybody else. But when you got one of the few in the league true shutdown corners, what's that going to do for everybody else? Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, Dalvin Cook in the running game had a hard time today. JJ absolutely came out on the higher end of the stick against Marshawn Lattimore. What a performance. What a great job by Kevin O'Connell, scheming a few different ways, creative, different looks, different wrinkles we haven't seen to get him open. And when you just got 2 great talents like that, battling it out for 4 quarters, going one-on-one, that was just fun to see. JJ ends 10 catches on 13 targets, 147 yards, and that big one at the end to get him down in field goal range. Absolutely incredible performance by one of the playmakers that you needed to step up in a game like this.
Luke, Vegas is good. The Vikings were favored by 3. They win by 3. I don't know if it snuck down to 2.5 some places, but the Vikings, I think, pushed against the spread, and that was all at betonline.net. We were tracking it all week long, and this postcast is brought to you by betonline.net, your top source for all sports wagering info. Last week, they nailed the over-under on the Vikings-Lions game within half a point, and this week, it's the spread that they absolutely nailed perfectly. Get that and more, NCAA football, MMA, boxing, golf, MLB, the final week of the season. BetOnline.net, Check it out on your laptop, on mobile, wherever you can get it. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, Luke. Wil Lutz, 61 yards.
Whew.
Ball is floating through the air. Was it Cody Parkey for the Bears who double doinked in the playoffs? I think it was Cody
I believe
Parkey.
you're right. I believe you're right. Yep.
A double doink. And it was the same as the Parkey doink. It was left upright, crossbar, and out from 61. Your thoughts as the ball is traveling through the air?
I thought it was good. I thought even if it hit that first upright, I thought the angle that it was heading towards was going to doink in somehow, some way. And I think as Vikings fans, we're just used to coming out on the short end of the stick in those situations, especially when it comes to game-deciding field goal attempts there. But absolutely incredible. Of course, again, a slow starting game for the most part, but just ended that last 20, 30 minutes. Absolutely entertaining and incredible. And what a finish. Again, Vikings 3-1. You'll take it any way you can get it, but yeah, that's a tough one, especially after he just hit a 60-yard field goal just a few minutes prior too. But of course, this team travels out to London, national televised game. You knew there was going to be some dramatics in the end for sure.
Yeah, the importance of special teams today. Massive fantasy day for my guy, Greg Joseph. I think he outscored Adam Thielen today. 5 field goals, and that's great. The Vikings had a turnover on a forced fumble on a punt. They had a fake punt that resulted in a first down. And the offense did a pretty poor job of capitalizing on this, Luke. And that's why Greg Joseph was kicking 5 field goals, is because they were pretty bad in Saints territory, working the ball into the end zone. They had one situation with a delay of game from the 3-yard line. There was a drop ball by Johnny Munt, a drop ball on a tough adjustment there by Justin Jefferson that he probably should have caught. So what are you seeing in the red zone right now? Why is this not working? Because Philadelphia, it was the exact same thing. And in that game, it was turnovers. Today, at least they got field goals out of it. But is there anything standing out to you about those failures?
You know, it's not just one thing right now. And to add on to the drops, remember C.J. Ham on a nice little wheel route down the sideline. Could have been a big 20, 30-yard chunk play. That just goes outside the fingertips as well. So a lot of different guys, a lot of different drops. Kirk, just in general, not just the red zone, still seems not totally comfortable with this offense. A little panicky, a little second-guessing, that double clutch, that double pump, not trusting his instincts and his reads and the plays that Kevin O'Connell's drawn up. You're right, though. I mean, this is what we're going to talk about all week. We'll dissect it more once the film comes out, specifically what's going on in the red zone. You mentioned the drops. There was a few penalties. This is the first game I've heard Brian O'Neill's name called more than once for a penalty, and as long as I can remember, defense and special teams really carried this team for the most part until the very end, just like we saw last week against Detroit. Why isn't it clicking, though, the other 3.5 quarters? That's what's, going to be the A topic throughout the week. I'm sure we'll dissect a little bit more, but you're right, a little bit more stats and facts from the defense. 2 forced fumbles. You mentioned the converted fake punt. 5 for 5 on field goals, and the 2 great kick returns too, by the way. Kenny Nwangu had a 33-yard kick return, and Jalen Reagor had a 22-yard punt return. So if it wasn't for the defense and special teams really carrying this this squad for, you could argue 57 minutes of this game, more or less, the offense would be under even more scrutiny than it's going to be this week.
Yeah, and the offense really needed some pretty big Saints penalties to score that touchdown late in the game. They had a 3rd and 10 defensive holding or legal contact call, and then later a 39-yard Adam Thielen pass interference, which was maybe a little ticky-tack. Mike Pereira didn't think it should be a penalty. Vikings will take it, obviously. Big beneficiaries, though, today of penalties. I think the Saints had 9 or 10.
10 penalties for 102 yards. Yeah, Vikings just 5 penalties for 35 yards. And, in the first half, you're sitting there saying, I saw a few people on Twitter, and even I think the broadcast mentioned it. Kirk Cousins got hit in the head, not once, but twice, wasn't called. You're sitting there going, all right, when's the makeup call going to come? But in the end, Saints really shoot themselves in the foot. 10 penalties, for 102 yards. It's just so hard to win like that against any team any given week.
Injuries were a huge story coming into this game for the Saints, and I think we leave the game with injuries being a bigger story for the Vikings. So Jameis doesn't play, and I'm not sure that was a downgrade for New Orleans, to be honest. I thought Dalton was fine. Kamara doesn't play. running game did lack a little bit of punch, especially in the screen game. I didn't think the Saints had a lot going for them, like with their running backs actually converting through the air. Michael Thomas didn't play. Their receivers were a little bit anonymous. They weren't exactly starring in this football game. So that impacted the game, no doubt. But the Vikings leave with serious injury to Lewis Seen. And if you can stomach the video, Luke, you tweeted that out at Luke_Spinman. NFL Network was censoring the footage. They did not show a replay, and probably for good reason, because it is tough to watch. So that's extremely serious. You've got Adam Thielen dinged up. You've got Harrison Smith dinged up at the end. Cam Dantzler dinged up. And that doesn't include Dalvin Cook, who came into the game with a shoulder harness. So the Vikings will be licking their wounds on the way back from London.
Yeah, and remember, too, it was the Vikings who really pounded the table and advocated, basically asked the NFL, hey, I know you usually give the teams the bye week after the London trip. It's too early. It's too tough to play a stretch of then 12, 13 straight games in a row, especially if you hope to be heading into the playoffs like that. So they don't get their bye till, week 7, I believe. Again, softer schedule coming up. But you look at the injuries and how they were dinged up, as you just mentioned, just a laundry list of big names here, starters. Certainly a week of rest maybe would be very beneficial right now. Nonetheless, it's still around the corner. It is coming up here in about 3 weeks. But yeah, a lot of big names. Obviously, this is the NFL. Every week there's big names that go down. Hopefully the severity of most of these injuries aren't long-term. And hopefully you feel confident in the depth that these guys can step up and take place when needed. You mentioned most of those outside of Lewis Seen. And we'll find out about Harrison Smith. Looked like maybe a jammed up wrist there at the end. Hopefully that's not broken, because that's 6 to 8 weeks. But, if it's not, the guys like Eric Kendricks, he came back later in the game, and Cam Dantzler, I believe, was back later in the game as well. So hopefully outside of that Lewis Seen injury, the Vikings can get out of London without any other big injuries.
Couple more quick ones, Luke. Thanks everyone for joining the postcast here. We do this after every Vikings game, usually with Luke Braun. He's in London right now. Sorry, we had Luke's name on the screen at the beginning. That was my bad. Please forgive me for that. KOC. Really clever opening script, led to a touchdown, and the offense stagnated after that. I also didn't love his clock management end of the first half, letting the clock wind down to 16 seconds when they're still at the 20-yard line, and then not attempting the 4th and 1 inside the 10. Your thoughts on the coach's performance today?
Yeah, Vikings fans, maybe some of them rolling their eyes a little bit, say, oh no, I thought this era was over under the Mike Zimmer, the bad clock management. I'm with you. Why not take one of your 3 timeouts as the clock is dripping down from 52, 51, 50 seconds, and give yourself an opportunity after it seemed like you're getting a little stale to just take a second, take a breath, and regroup and draw up a play that you really like and prefer. Didn't like that, the clock management. I will say on the 4th down there, I understand the analytics for sure. You could probably flip a coin. I know you wanted to go for it, and I understand that. But I think at that point, I could see the justification just taking the points. You figured this was going to be a low-scoring game. Your defense had been playing well up to that point as well, and you're going up against Andy Dalton. Trust in the defense and special teams. But I think as we see the season move along a little bit further, remember, this is only his 4th head coaching game ever in his career. I think we're going to start to see a little bit more aggressiveness, a little bit more of that Sean McVay type of coaching tree that we're used to with Zach Taylor and, of course, McVay with the Rams. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here for this first few stretch of games. But if this doesn't change, I certainly think he should be forced to answer some of those questions, because I think they're very valid, Sam.
Vikings have not faced great football teams the last 2 weeks. They've escaped with wins. A lot of kinks to work out, though, as the season goes along. And you hope that, the Vikings with a forgiving schedule early, if you're a Vikings fan, you're looking forward, I think, to post-bye. Like if they can be 4-2 or even 5-1 at the bye and kind of work through these issues, get more comfortable with the offense, there can be plenty of optimism for this team, assuming that they can continue to ascend. And this is not the level of play that fans will see all season. And you'd rather play badly and win than play badly and lose. It completely changes the complexion of this season. Vikings win 28-25. You can get daily breakdowns of this game and leading into the Chicago game on Locked On Vikings with Luke Braun. That's daily, Monday through Friday. Superior Sports Talk with Luke Inman and Reggie Wilson on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Myself and Ron Johnson on Locked On Sports Minnesota as well. And don't forget the Minnesota Football Party, Mondays and Thursdays with Luke, myself, Luke Braun, and Arif Hassan. This has been the Locked On Vikings postcast. Hey, Luke, you've got a full day ahead of you. Go watch some football. Go hang out with your family. Have some fun.
Yeah, I'm ready for a nap, man. I haven't woke up that early to watch some Viking game in a long time. So, yeah, quite the dramatics for sure, but excited to break it all down with you, Arif, Luke Braun, Ron Johnson, Reggie Wilson, everybody on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast Network this week here coming up, specifically tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Luke. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Tell your friends about the postcast. Comment below with your thoughts on the game, and enjoy the rest